question for you. You remember when we had went out to RFP, we were selecting one of the, we evaluated banks and fintechs, and we selected CSI. And one of the reasons we selected you was your ability to the adoption. In almost any other industry, you're able to get suppliers to adopt that at a very high level with relatively little pushback. One of the perceptions I know within the oil and gas industry is suppliers might push back. What would you say to folks who are worried about their suppliers pushing back? And if you hear about any pushbacks, what would you say the typical reason is?
Lack of education, lack of understanding of the clarity of the value proposition. The fact of the matter is, when CSI engages with a new client, we are not endeavoring down a path to get the supplier convinced to accept a virtual card for the first time. So there's another army of service providers called merchant acquirers in the industry that are doing that for us. They are out there signing up businesses. If you're a large oil and gas or a mid-size oil and gas exploration company, there are companies out there today bringing your suppliers onto the network because of the benefits that I mentioned earlier. So keep in mind, we are not trying to convince them to accept that value proposition for the first time. We're just attempting or endeavoring to get them to accept, given the commercial terms that an Enverus customer may have with their suppliers. So we just have to create the value proposition. And the suppliers are already 90% there. So we're really not convincing them to do anything that they haven't already baked into their business plan. I think that's a common misconception. I think people think that we have to make this work, we need to go and approach all the suppliers and get them convinced to accept the virtual card for the first time. Whereas most of our opportunity reports that we deliver in the form of what we call a vendor match really only estimate very conservative percentages of adoption, given the unique relationships of the buyer and the supplier in this case. And essentially what we do is we take the tacit knowledge of your own negotiation culture if you're a buyer, the specific commercial relationship that you already have negotiated with your supplier, and blend in the value of accepting a virtual card to make sure that the two of those are presented together. Our adoption rate is significant when we're managing it that way.
I'm reminded of the recent engagement you and I were on, and we presented that to the customer, and they realized 40 to 45% of their suppliers were already accepting MasterCard or Visa.
Exactly.
And it's an educational point, and it's something that I think is oftentimes misunderstood. You said that a lot of times these suppliers are already accepting it. One of the things I've also seen, it'd be helpful to gain your perspective, is sometimes customers like, well, okay, we're paying this group via ACH, and how's that going to work with virtual card and print mail? We obviously can handle that, and we integrate that all really well, but would you maybe talk to that, because you've seen that in other industries too?
Sure. There is no question that if a supplier is already receiving payments digitally via ACH, that it may be slightly more challenging to get them to switch from that form of digital payment over to virtual card. And for that reason, my team and I we're in a race. We're in a race to reach and educate the market as fast as we can to consider virtual card first before you move your supplier automatically to ACH. Now, ACH can be highly beneficial to the buyer because of the process and efficiency associated with digital payment versus check payment, but we want to talk to you first before you go and approach your suppliers with ACH. If you've already done that, typically what we find is ACH payments are just delivered as a lump sum deposit without really good, robust reconciliation detail that accompanies that. And the capabilities of the card networks are significant in our ability to attach a data file along with a payment file, so that when the payment is settled, it can be accompanied by a lot more detail as to what the payment is for. So we can, if you think about a check comes either with a single statement that's limited, or it's a giant stack of paper that is for maybe 1,000 invoices if you're paying quarterly, as an example, if you have 90-day payment terms as a buyer. So that's a nightmare for the supplier to deal with. In our case, we deliver an elegant data file that can be extracted and then imported into the GL on the receiving side, so that payment is easily reconciled with the statement details that define what the payment was for. So the point is valid. We'd like to speak to this buyer-supplier relationship before the ACH transfer, but we are very successful converting from ACH over to card as well, because the suppliers accept that there is a value proposition there in terms of processing and efficiency that offsets the interchange.